Okay, so I'm going to draw a little space station. Like these that I've been drawing over the last few days. Kind of weird field space stations. I'm actually calling them way stations. I don't know why. They're space stations. So, let me show you how to draw them. First of all, paper is cartridge, layout pad. So just cheap paper. Pens. Copic Multiliner. It's a 0.1. And a little Tomboy Fude brush pen. So it's not very brushy. It's kind of cross between like a fine liner and a brush pen. Got a bit of give in it, not a lot. You will also need coffee, and I always try to reward myself after a little drawing, so you'll need one of these. If you don't know what these are, then you're really missing out. Google them, buy them online, they're a treasure. Right, so space stations. So weird field space stations, so they've got these kind of big fin things going on and loads of little spheres and sticky out bits, but I wanted something that looked a bit like a traditional sci-fi space station, you know, these kind of big domed habitable bits, stuff hanging off the end. Not sure where that all started, but could have been Ralph McQuarrie or Joe Johnston for Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back. There's a bit of Bespin Cloud City going on in there. Anyway, let's crack on. So, get that out of the way. Look out if you can see what I'm doing. I don't do an awful lot of drawing on video, so let's see how this goes. That's kind of about right. So I'm going to start off drawing a bit of a dome. So this would be kind of like the main habitable bit. So it's kind of domey, but I don't want it like a complete dome. Got some weird asymmetry going on. I mean, it's essentially some kind of frying pan upside down at the minute, but I kind of like that. Asymmetry is a good thing, I think, in most things. So I'm not after really perfect lines with these, and you can't really get them with a brush pen, even if you wanted them. So it gives it a bit more character. And then I think this is kind of very Star Wars-y, Ralph McQuarrie, this kind of layered bit going on here, isn't it? You know, if you turn some of the buildings in more obviously upside down or reverse them and stuff, you've got weird stuff like this going on. Good thing about a brush pen is you can just throw in these shadows really quickly. And I use shadows a lot because I tend to draw everything in like elevational view, so I'm not a 3D kind of sketcher. Now I'm going to throw in these spheres, which I guess are all kind of atmospheric processing stuff, or fuel cells. Maybe this is bringing in stuff from some nearby gas giant to be processed to be sent out to habitats elsewhere. And then again, I'm going to go asymmetrical. So instead of having a central sort of spine that falls down, kind of down here, I just knock it off center a bit. It just makes it a bit more interesting, I think. And as you can see, there's not an awful lot of method to my madness here. I'm just kind of throwing bits in. Don't even know what these things are, but it's good to kind of throw some detail in, even if that detail isn't clearly defined. So that's kind of the concept of greebling to an extent, which I'm sure you all know. There's also that, they call it the 80-20 rule. I don't know where that came from, whether it's a concept art thing or particularly a greebly sci-fi type thing, or whether it's got its roots in other art as well. But that's basically you got areas where you should have lots of detail and areas you should kind of keep clean, and the ratio between the two should be 20-80, so 20% detail, 80% kind of quite clean, and it tends to work mostly. I think it just gives your eye places to concentrate on and places to linger, but doesn't kind of overcomplicate things. And again, just going for asymmetry down here. I don't know what this is. More processing units, or maybe this is kind of fusion stuff and they keep it as far away from the main habitation as they can. That would make sense, wouldn't it? And then just block in some bits that are completely in the shade. They kind of help define the bits that aren't in the shade, help them bring them forward a bit. And then a really easy way to add a bit of depth is to have stuff that kind of comes out. It's mostly in the shade and then it pops out into the sunlight, which makes you realise that the whole thing is not a flat object. And you can do that as much or as little as you like. So in the weird field world, all this technology is given to us by aliens via a series of messages that come from the stars. And it's all, we're able to build it all. The kind of engineering is basically kind of human level engineering, but the physics behind it is absolutely baffling to us. So we build all this stuff and these spheres, some of which are empty and some of which just contain water or, you know, completely normal stuff. So it's all really normal engineering, but we just don't understand why it works. So we don't understand the physics behind it all. So even though we end up flying around in these incredibly exotic spaceships, we don't quite know how they do it. So that's kind of the basic basic shape. There you go. Didn't realise you couldn't see that bottom bit. That's kind of the basic shape, and then I'll use the finer pen, and I will throw in some detail, but not too much detail with these because I quite like the simplicity of them being sort of quite light in that regard. These are almost like panel lines, construction lines. And then throw in some more kind of, I don't know, these are docking bays. This thing really is like a fin, so there wouldn't be too much going on in here. But I guess this is a big enough thing for there to be enough depth for some docking bays in there. Stripes, always stripes. You can't beat some stripes on a spaceship. That's Chris Foss's fault, and thank you, Chris Foss, for that. Again, if you don't know who Chris Foss is, just like the Tunnocks, Google him. He's a master. I'm sure most of you know who he is. And if you don't, you probably recognise his work, because he's incredibly influential in sci-fi art. And then these bits, I don't really know what I'm doing here, kind of, again, sort of engineering construction lines. I try not to put too much in the way of form into these, simply because I'm not very good at it. So I want enough in there so you know that this is a hemisphere. But I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to draw it all accurately. So this, as you can see, is all quite clear. You know, there's little bits of detail, but nothing, not a lot really going on. And then, you know, this is all quite complicated, and we can add complexity and form to this, which is one of those things I tend to do with these spheres. And you know what they are. And really just adding a bit of interest, sometimes tidying up, you know, a little bit that I've done with the brush pen, and then adding in more of those kind of panel construction lines, and I'll sometimes line them up with things that I've done before. Kind of makes sense. And then again, maybe some lines that give you an idea of form. So this is probably just enough to make this look like it's got volume. Again, it's little windows going on. I'm guessing scale-wise, draw a couple of little spaceships, you know, I want it to be quite big. So these little dots here, pretty big spaceships, maybe carrying, you know, 1,000 people or something. So this space station is probably a few kilometers tall. So it's a big old beast. Probably lurking out around the orbit of Mars, maybe. Kind of way station for Earth-Mars traffic, or traffic that's going out to the asteroid belt for mining. And that's really it. So there you go, space station. I don't really always know where I'm going with these when I draw them. Let's just, there you go, you can see it a bit better. Maybe. I kind of vaguely know what I want when I start drawing one, but how I get there might change. And as you can see, they're all kind of much of a muchness at the minute, but they've all got little different bits. I really like this asymmetry going on here, and I kind of like that nice little nodule thing going on there. So I'll draw a few, you know, maybe I'll spend a couple of days drawing these things, and get to a point where I think, okay, that's good, and you know, I might just knock it on the head there, or I might draw one up and colour it.